Welcome to Melissa's Basement. I am so excited today to be talking to the incredible Tegan and Sara. These gals are exquisite musicians, amazing singer-songwriters, and they're just a lot of fun to be around. So welcome, you guys. Hey.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Now, you grew up in Canada, in Alberta?
Yeah, in Calgary.
Calgary.
Yeah.
Now, when did you start playing? Did you find music together?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, my parents put us in piano lessons when we were really young. And as we got into our teenage years, it was sort of the mid-90s. And so everyone was in like either a garage band or a punk rock band. You know, the Riot Girl movement was happening. So, so we were like, oh, it's so geeky to play piano. We want to play guitar. And my mom basically negotiated with us and said that if we would keep doing piano, because we were doing classical training.
Oh, yeah.
She was like, if you keep doing that, then I'll give you guitar lessons for Christmas. And my stepdad had a guitar in the basement and we had just started writing songs on it. And we did like 2 lessons and we both hated it.
Yeah.
But we kept writing and we kept recording ourselves, and we had a broadcasting and communication school in our high school. And we were both very bratty, pot smoker, kind of rebellious teenagers in our school. Really embraced the music part. They were like, you come
Canada.
record yourself. Like, it was great.
I love Canada for this reason. I have a theory about Canada because my first album in 1988 was huge in Canada.
Yeah. Huge.
More huge than it was in America.
I mean, it was played every single day in our house. Every single day. And to my mom, Sonia Clement, driving around in the 1986 Aerostar van, blasting it to her teenage girls. We sang every word.
Well, we weren't teenagers just yet.
No,
you were.
Sorry, we were children, just children. 1988, yeah.
Oh,
but no, I think Canada does. I mean, we have a lot of artists break in Canada.
That's
before
exactly.
they break in the
a lot of
States.
female artists.
Yeah.
Now, so after that, you got so many. I mean, Alanis came from there.
Yeah.
And I think Canada really supports. Well, one, it does. It has the
great arts.
35% of music that you hear on Canadian radio has to be content. When I play Canada, I have to have a Canadian opening act. You have to have Canadian content, which is amazing. And your video, when I remember when Much Music started in Canada, and it had to be 35% or more, I don't know, of Canadian content. So you get the
it fostered a lot of really amazing talent for sure.
And you keep seeing this. And so when I saw you guys, I went, there's the result of this.
Well, also a result of growing up, I was back in Canada, up in Vancouver, because I live there now part-time, and I was going through my stepdad's vinyl collection, which is all 70s and 80s music. He sent it to me, and I was going through, and there was a much higher percentage of female content in it than I expected. He's like, 6'4", had a gym in the basement. And it's like every female artist that came out in the 70s and 80s, I now own every single one of those records. I actually had 2 copies of your first record and then just one of Brave and Crazy. But I think that's because my mom and him put their collection together. So obviously they both owned the records. But yeah, there was just so many female artists. We grew up listening to, I mean, besides Bruce Springsteen, we pretty much exclusively listened to female-fronted bands or singer-songwriters or rock artists. It was incredible.
And see, that's amazing because you couldn't find that sort of mix readily in America. You had to really kind of look for it. But the way that it was supported, I feel, and now that you've lived a good chunk of your life and have been in Canada and America, do you find even opportunity outside of music is more equal rights up there?
I mean, we hesitate to sort of put Canada on this pedestal because we have our own problems. We have a lot of the same issues and the same sort of institutional sexism and misogyny and whatever. They're just more Canadian. Like it's sort of like those they exist, but we're sort of we're balanced out by some of the things that are missing in the States. Like Tegan and I have like a really positive story about being musicians and artists and having access to sort of like government money and factor grants and touring grants and whatever. But then we also face some of our worst sexism in the press in Canada when we first started out, you know? So I think it's you know, I think it's important to recognize that, like, that the things exist, and it's important to call them out. And we had lots of our first sort of scuzzy industry problems in Canada. Like, you know, we didn't grow up in a utopia, but it certainly was, there was a lot of, as Tegan said, fostering of the talent. And there was a real, like, rush to support us when we first started playing music. And we were like in 12th grade when we started getting the attention of the industry, like the music business.
Wow.
And, you know, there was a lot of, it wasn't just people trying to sign us. There was actually, this is also very Canadian, there was a lot of people who reached out to us who said, I would love to just advise you.
Women,
and men too. But people who came to us and said, "Don't rush into signing a record deal. Take it easy. Like, calm down. Like, avoid this person." Like, one of the first people that we ever hired, actually, the first person Tegan and I ever put on a payroll was a lawyer, because somebody said, like, protect yourself from the very beginning. You sign the wrong contract now, it will follow you for the rest of your life.
True.
And so that is definitely one thing I noticed, is that there is like the sort of like salacious underbelly of like people trying to take advantage of you, but then there was this like buffer of people who said, whoa, you guys are 18 and you need to just like take a second, take a beat, consider your options, live a little bit of life before you make a decision. And we were really lucky that we did that, because the people that we ended up working with, and they came to us a little later, was Elliot Roberts and Neil Young. And it was like, they gave us so much freedom. It was like a total, like, do whatever you want for however long you want, say whatever you want. Like, they were so chill. And they didn't try to control us or do anything weird with us. And so I'm glad we waited.
We are talking to Tegan and Sara, and I'm sorry, listeners at home, I cannot tell you who's who.
We sit in our name order.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, we do. We like, or when we take photos,
really
we always stand in Tegan and Sara. Always.
Do you like mean to do that?
I think it's probably now subconscious. Like I did when I walked in the room. I don't even think about doing it, but I immediately reference Sara so everyone in the room can go,
that must be Tegan.
Tegan.
No, I worked on it. I'm going to know which one is which. I
bet you by the hour you'll know. You'll see the difference.
Oh, yeah, totally. No, you have a very different personality.
Yeah.
You do. And, you know, twin talk. I have twins.
You know.
I know, but I have boy and girl twins, but I always love people that go, are they identical?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I want you to think about that just for a minute. I have a boy and a girl. You tell me if they're identical.
Let's hope not.
We always sort of tell, I mean, we say this to people and it's sincere. It's not trying to like make anybody just feel better. Tegan and I say we have twin blindness. So like I meet twins and I act like, I'm like, I'll never know which one is which. I feel totally stressed out. I find them weird.
You're right.
Like everything that I'm sure people feel about us.
I say this about lesbians all the time. I have lesbian face blindness. I meet a couple and I'm like, I don't remember which name goes with which person.
No. And you'll never know their last names.
Never.
You'll only know their first name. Oh my gosh. Yes. And that's another thing. Now I didn't want to make this like a whole lesbian interview at all. Yet, oh my gosh, I can't tell you how happy I was when you guys came on the scene. And it was like, oh, and aside, they're also both lesbians.
Yeah.
Okay, and let's go. I loved, because I always said, people used to ask me in the 90s, well, do you think someone can be successful, can come out and then be successful? And I said, yes, that's what, and I said, it's going to happen. You're going to have artists that are like, that feel free enough from the very beginning to go, yeah, we're queer and this is, what we are and here's the music and let's go on.
Yeah.
And when I saw that in you guys and how you've been embraced by, the punk and pop and how you've just, it's such an aside and it just thrills me every time. So well done.
Well, we feel like there were so many before us, including you, who paved the way and made it okay. Like proved that you could be very successful and very accomplished and still identify outside of the mainstream, or this heteronormative world that we were living in. And I think for Sara and I, we were lucky because when we started out, we weren't in any way aspiring to sort of mainstream success in any way.
We also weren't aspiring to look straight.
Yeah,
we looked very gay.
Yeah,
right on.
So it wasn't like we were.
Our hair outed us pretty much from 1998 on.
Yeah, so we weren't like living in a state of shock or even fighting it. We were sort of just embracing it right from the beginning. But for us, it's been a huge part of our journey, especially the last few records that have, managed to get us into the mainstream. Any pushback, any resistance, any negativity or criticism about our push towards the mainstream, we've been very clear that like this is an exciting time. This is a really amazing time, and it's incredible, not only as a queer person, but knowing that so much of our audience is queer, that we have been embraced by the mainstream. When we were doing well, and I say that in quotes, in the indie rock world, we were the only women often, most of the time, and we were definitely the only lesbians, and it was alienating. It was hard sometimes. It was very difficult to be on a festival bill with all white hetero men. I didn't feel embraced. And so when we kind of veered over into pop and we were embraced there, and everybody was like, well, why are you abandoning the indie world? I'm like, I'm not entirely sure we belonged in the indie world. So it's been an interesting journey, but like Sara said, we never really had a choice. We were just out. We never really, there was just, we were selling something so honest. We were writing songs that were so specific to our experience that it felt very disingenuous to even consider not being anything but what we were. And Sara said, like, how were we, what do we have passed? I can remember the first few photo shoots, people being like, wear these dresses. And I was like, have you looked at us yet? Like, did you really take in what's happening in front of you right now?
Yeah. I remember my first photo shoots.
Oh my God, you must have,
you have no idea. I have them hidden. I did not wear any dresses. No, that I didn't do.
How about bathing suits? We did a teen Vogue or something, and they had bathing suits, and Sara was like, look, straight up, not going to happen. And the woman was like, but you're beautiful. Sara's like, no, I know. I know.
Oh, no, she was like, you have a beautiful body. And I was like, oh, I know I have a beautiful body. I am not interested in showing anyone the body on your magazine.
It's so funny. And this started happening, this sort of fashion and music thing.
Yeah.
How it, because I actually remember in the 80s, one of the first things Rolling Stone said, we want to put you in the fashion part. And I said, what part of me? Look at me. I am in no way fashion, savvy. And my music doesn't say fashion. And so I just said, no, thank you.
Was it just something that happened right off the bat, though, that people just start, like, did you feel any sort of pressure to change the way you looked or change the way that you dressed when you started to become so successful?
That you're asking me questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
Pressure...
This is our first time meeting you. We're so thrilled to have like a whole piece of paper with questions.
We'll go right ahead. Actually, the pressure came from me.
Yeah.
I remember, because I was playing in lesbian bars.
Yeah.
And playing for years. I didn't get signed till I was 27.
Wow.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And I was all matured and lived a lot of life. So my first album, had so much in it. And I remember thinking, well, what am I going to wear? When every night I would go down to the bar and I'd be wearing my jeans and my T-shirt. So why didn't I just wear my jeans and my T-shirt? And I actually had the head of Island Records. I don't know if you've ever dealt with Island Records at all, but it was Chris Blackwell. Chris Blackwell signed Bob Marley. He brought Bob Marley to the world. U2, Robert Plant. He was the music that he brought in the 60s and 70s was alternative in its own way. And he was astounding at believing in the music and believing in the artist. I even went up and made my first record with a guy up in San Francisco, and it was all like a Journey. It was very, very 80s sounding. And I handed it in. And he goes, I hate it. And I said, oh my God, that's it. It's over. And he had taken pictures of me. We did the photo shoot for the album, and the cover has the leather jacket and the T-shirt, and I'm going like this, and he actually said, "Make this album."
Wow.
And so he did that. Isn't it funny though? I think I find the most insecure people to be musicians.
Oh my God! Of course we are. Of course we are. Sara and I have a weird mix because we are both extremely extroverted when we need to be, and we can really work a room, and we have a real natural ability to talk to anyone and everyone. And then the second it's over, we're like, whether it's backstage in the green room or in the car ride home, we just unzip. Then we're just like, oh my God, that was so terrible. And everything I said, I just hate myself. It was just this long spiral of awfulness. And did I talk too much? Did I say that? What did I look like? Oh my God, you had dry shampoo in your hair. It was awful. Like, it's nonstop.
Okay, that did happen recently. Poor Tegan. She was on like a television show and we got off stage.
I watched it. You can't tell.
And she had so much dry shampoo not rubbed into her hair. And our publicist was like, "Yo, what's in your hair?" And I was like,
like, "Yo, why didn't you say it before I went on national television?"
Yeah. No, you guys call it a look, because really that's
true.
But that's such a woman thing, and I'm telling you this, that I've done that too. You asked me about, what I was going to wear, or whether I ever thought about fashion. And you can see, if you go through, but please don't, if you go through
I know what I'm doing on my long Uber ride home.
Old videos, you're going to see some bad choices, because it was it was that MTV. It's the end of the 80s, which was a lost time anyway. Very kind of like right now, I think, in music. This feels like the end of the 80s.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I finally went, doggone it, I'm just going to wear my flannel shirt and my jeans. And the minute I said that, bam, the grunge movement happened, and everybody was wearing flannel shirts. And I went, look, see, I'm in.
I would argue
you were right on trend.
I would argue that a lot of times, like, artists that don't conform to certain types of gender identities are often really informing what happens in the mainstream, and they don't always get the credit for it. But I would argue that because we don't have to adhere to certain types of, body standards or aesthetics or whatever, we end up causing trends that people might laugh at initially, but they will, like, we joke around, you're gonna think this is like I'm making this up, but Tegan and I feel we have truly informed a lot of hairstyles for people. Like, not just gay people, but like, we sort of feel comfortable to sort of like try things that and then you see, and then it just becomes normal, like girls having short hair, or Justin Bieber's kind of like Demi Moore like ghost look. Like, I'm like, I was doing that years before Justin Bieber was doing that. So I think we can take risks because people don't expect certain things.
You guys are so cool looking. You guys have the best cheekbones in music. I'm telling you right now. And and when you have the coolest looks, and I love that, because it's
very sweet.
It sort of takes this David Bowie androgyny, and to see it in twins, and it's just I think it's super, super cool. So I love every choice.
I get up every day and feel glad that we don't have mangled faces, because I think it's like, well, guys can look awful. Like, guys can look awful. They can do, guys, this. Guys can do.
It's in the eye of the beholder.
Guys can look gnarly, and girls are like, oh my God. We have toured with people where I'm like, not if you paid me $1 trillion. Like, I would rather sleep with someone that I just randomly met at a bar who was just clean, But like, I'm touring with these people, the girls are throwing themselves at these people.
Well, I think to myself, you're talking more about just like general hygiene now.
I'm talking hygiene, I'm talking facial hair, I'm talking
there's a double standard for women.
Cleanliness.
Which I will say, when we started playing music, we've been talking about this a lot lately, but like, there was a double standard in that, like, a lot of the learning, growing, developing that I think men are like that time that men are given, like we just like from the third show we ever played, there was criticism, like emails that came to our fan account that were like, you guys are like teenagers, I can't believe people are covering you, because it was like we weren't like polished yet, we weren't ready yet, and there was I remember in sort of the mid 2000s going to radio stations and people being like, wow, you're so clean and together and you don't smell like booze. And I'm like, yeah, because last night after the second we finished the show, whether it was our tour manager or our managers or our record company, it was like, all right, girls, home to bed, got radio in the morning. Like,
Good for you.
Well, I'm glad now because I feel like I look 26 instead of,
yes,
100.
Indeed.
We've, been touring for 20 years, but the guys that were rolling up to the radio station, they look like they had a better time than we had.
Oh, well, that's, it's relative. And I actually made a lot of choices. I didn't, I was not a drinker. I was in bed because I had to be up in the morning.
That's
and
amazing.
It adds to your career. So you're in for a long career.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine, though, starting your career with social media. I did not have social media till my, fourth or fifth record. I cannot imagine first start, because I used to eat up whatever anybody said.
Right.
And it was always, the reviewers. The only feedback I would ever get was from the review in the paper, and you do a show and then you wait a week for the review to come out.
Oh my God.
And it's one guy and you're like, oh my God, was he at the show that I was at?
Like, did you feel like those people got you?
Every now and then one would. A lot would not. A lot, they would really get hung up on the audience. They could not.
I literally just wrote a piece about this.
What we say all the time.
Yeah, I just wrote about this, like
obsessed with who's in the audience and how different
it's like
they
halfway
see
through the
themselves
article
from who likes this music.
Because you can tell. You
or
can tell the one that was
apologizing for liking
assigned.
it. They're like, I can't believe I'm really enjoying this.
This was a lot better than I thought it would be.
I'm literally the only man here. People will say that, and I'm like, you are not the only man.
True. It's so not true.
This is a real grape fest. You know what's funny when you just said this? Actually, when you just said, I can't imagine what it's like to start your band in a time with social media. The thing that popped into my head was I can't imagine what it was like to live in a time where you sold records. Like, I mean, I was looking at, like, how many records that you've sold?
Millions.
It's incredible.
And that does not exist anymore.
No. And it wasn't, I mean, we were aware of what that might, like, we were aware of that, but obviously, like, you know, we put out our first record in 1999, so it wasn't, you know, we didn't.
That was the beginning of the end.
But that was the beginning of the end. And so when the shift happened, and it was like we could spend all that time and energy making a record and then just expect it to go up onto MySpace or go onto streaming, we embraced it because for us, it was like we never had that kind of career or success where we sold records, so we were really into it. We were like, when people would say to us, oh, you should go on social media, or you should make little videos, or you should interact with your fans, or you should, you know, we were just like, okay. You know, a lot of bands who were even just a few years older than us were so resistant, and we've just embraced it, and because we were like, well, how else are we going to get our music out there?
That was the future. There it is right there. And to go from selling 1 million records the first week you came out, 1 million.
It's amazing.
Well, there was no other way to get music.
Sure.
And people love music, and they still do. And so, you know, millions of people are still listening to your music and know your music. It to me, we're celebrating. Ooh, you sold 30,000 records. I'm like, oh my God, we're celebrating that I sold 30,000.
I mean, these are questions you probably cannot answer honestly, but I just would love to be a fly on the wall when that happens, and you're like, what you must think, like, because you have lived in a time where that's just, you know.
Well, I saw it slowly. Each record I put out, it was less and less. Yet each performance I did was more and more.
You're sustaining.
So I knew that it was still getting out there. So you have to let the paradigms go away. And actually, I look at it and I think, you know what? It's getting rid of the middle guy that was making a whole lot of money. Did I make any money on the 6 million records? No, I didn't.
Of course not. Do you feel like it's affected the way that you write? Like now when you think about how your music is going to be distributed and how it's going to be heard, do you feel like more or less pressure? Like we're starting to write for the next record already, right? And I'm starting to think like it's really affecting the way I think about music in general.
Yeah, because I have to stay closer to what I am. I can't listen to the radio anymore and think, oh, that's where I belong, because I don't.
Yeah.
Because they're selling to those, 12 to 18-year-olds that will actually go out and buy a record or download a record that first week. And so you're going to get that one type of music, which you guys have done well in that genre, though. You do pop music awesome. I love your journey from.
But we're already like, we've got two of those albums, and we're already like, what's our exit strategy? Because I don't want to be a pop artist. I don't.
Yeah,
I thought it was like a really fun and challenge.
It was an exercise.
Yeah, we were like, what would it sound like if... But we've already been doing that with our earlier records. It was just like, oh, now we want to take on this thing. But I'm just curious. Like, people ask us this question all the time, and actually I find it to be a tremendously boring question, but I want to ask you it.
Absolutely.
Great. I'm on the edge of my seat over here.
People always ask us. I was doing press for our upcoming tour, and I get asked every single time, who do you write for?
Right. I write for me.
I write for me, too.
You have to write for you, because I trust that my audience, the ones that grab my records and go home and listen, buy it the first week that it's out and listen to it, they're looking for something. They're looking for that soul in me that they connect with. They're looking for some, oh my gosh, they said it the way I want to. And the only way we can do that is to find it in ourselves.
So do you feel like you didn't write for yourself? Like, is there music out there that you didn't write?
It gave me cancer. Yeah. No, I went through, it was the late 90s. I went through a horrible breakup and, a public thing, and it was nuts. Mm-hmm. And then I went to make my next album, and it was called Lucky. And I was writing, and music was changing. This is 2000.
Okay, terrible.
Which was a terrible time for music.
Crazy. I was like, I'm my record company's going to put me up against Britney Spears and NSYNC and all that. And I thought, oh my God. Yeah. So I went in and I did my best and wrote the stuff that I loved, and I turned my album in, and they said, okay, great. We don't hear a hit. How about doing this song that was written by someone else? And I'd never done a song by anybody else, right? And they brought it, and I remember crying. Going, oh my God, if I don't do this, the record company, they're going to, okay, we'll release it, but they're not going to put any money behind production. Behind publicity and marketing, and you know what happens when they don't. Yeah. So I said, okay, this song is all right. It's fine. The song was called Breathe. They put it on the radio. It got some play. It sounded like all the other songs on the radio. My heart was broken. And I got diagnosed with cancer. So I always say that's...
Thanks a lot, world. Thanks a lot, Year 2000 radio.
Yeah, but I don't blame them. I blame me for bringing that and not trusting myself. Yeah. And after that, I went, never again do I ever write for anything else. And the next album I made was The Awakening, which was in no way meant for pop, anything. All right, we need to take a quick break, but we'll pick this discussion up with Tegan and Sara in just a few minutes here on Melissa's Basement. Don't go anywhere. Hey, you're listening to Melissa's Basement. We'll be right back.
On Volume, Sirius XM 106.
Hey, settle in, get comfy. We're back with more of Melissa's Basement.
On Volume, Sirius XM 106.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Melissa Etheridge. We've got Tegan and Sara here with us today. And oh my gosh, you're just thrilling me so much. And I'm a little obsessed with getting you to sing Where Does It Good Go? But I will.
You might be able to get me to do it.
Yeah?
Yeah. It would be very hard to say no to you, I think.
Oh, I know. Ask my wife. Is it hard to say no to me? Yes,
very hard, yes. I bet.
Oh, so there you are in Canada. Let's see.
I was going to say actually too that when you just said that, like, I think you're probably hard to say no to. We are very hard to say no to as well, which is one of, I think, how we've sustained a career for 17 years.
I have another question then for you. So my big thing is, like, when I hear what I like to call the daddy's girl, I call it daddy's girl voice.
I understand exactly.
You know exactly what I'm saying, right? And I like people that sound like that sometimes. Like I love Lana Del Rey, for example. Okay, like the sultry,
because it's that voice but you hear what she's singing.
It's like, it's crazy. Like so video dark, games. So it's like I can listen to that a million times.
I love it.
But then there's other people, like, and I'm not going to say it because I'm like
not gonna.
I know, Tegan, relax. But like there are certain people, like when I hear their songs, I just am like, daddy's girl. Like I just hear it over and over in my head. And I think my big fear was that, Tegan and I are like 5'3" barely. We're pretty small people. And then there were two, like, we're like twins. And then I would hear our voices and I would be like, oh my God, are we like dolls? Like, are we like blah, 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 my voice? So I'm interested too to know, because like you, when I was younger, I would have named all my male influences. Like, and I almost felt like that was sort of like a subconscious sexist thing that I would do, because the truth is that the women that I emulate and the women that I did grow up listening to have informed my singing way more than any man ever did. Like Cyndi Lauper, Madonna, Annie Lennox, Kate Bush, like those were the things we grew up listening to. And I know like Tegan and I sang like British people for the first like 4 years. And I'm like, I think we love Sinead O'Connor.
The British people used to sing like us. So,
right. Yeah. We totally were emulating the women that we were listening to. We weren't, but when someone would say, like, when I was a teenager, especially, or early 20s, and they go like, oh, would you grow up listening to? I without even a thought, I would list all the male artists like David Bowie and Bruce Springsteen and U2 and whatever. And I was like, why did I do that? And I think there was something about like wanting to make sure that people took us seriously, and the way that you had to make, at least it seemed to me back then, the way to make people take you seriously was to put yourself in a peer group with other men, not with other women. And in a reaction to that, and I think a forceful reaction to that, Tegan and I now spend most of our life not talking about men. We try very hard. It's not because I'm like anti-man, but it's like I almost feel like it's retribution. Like I want to make sure that we prop up as many women and amplify as many new voices as we can, because there were a lot of years where I think because of society's pressure, we avoided women. We didn't bring women out on tour with us, because I remember actually being told, don't bring women out on tour with you because they'll take away from the impact when you get on stage. This existed. This so existed. It did.
I remember
it did.
I remember in the late 80s when and I don't remember who it was, but someone was suggesting a woman open for me. And my manager, he's not my manager anymore, but my manager at the time, who was a great manager, was like, oh, no, you don't want to be compared. It was like this thought that there's only room for one woman in the room, and that it's competition. And I found when my first record came out in 88, that there was all of a sudden this boom, this big a lot of women came out at that time. It was Tracy Chapman. It was Sinead O'Connor. I mean, the same year, Tracy Chapman, Sinead O'Connor, Tony Childs, Michelle Schacht, Edie Brickell.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, they were like, oh, my God, all the women. And then they didn't know what to do. And it was all the women. And
well, they still do it. Look at all the headlines last year were about, like, how many women were doing well in music. It's like, that's the headline. Like, it's not just like, wow, music's really great right now. It's like, oh, wow, there's so many women and they happen to be really good and they're dominating. And I mean, they're celebrating it, but they're also, putting the magnifying glass over and being like, well, why is this happening right now? This is incredible. Let's investigate this.
Right. And that it's either all of us or one of us.
Yeah.
You know, and so I loved when in the 90s when Sarah McLachlan finally put Little is Fair together, and that was like, look, we're gonna. Yet again, it's all women, and it's like, okay, where's that middle? And I've always tried to ride that, and I have had women musicians in my band, not very many, but I've had a few, and I definitely now, artist opening for me, I will look for women and really try and try to make that equal, and you just do the best you can along the way.
Oh, for sure.
Look, we spent so many years asking our managers why can't we find more women, and specifically women in the technical roles on the road. Yeah. And with this record, in light of everything going on in the world, Sarah and I were like, it's just not good enough to say, well, this is the only people's resumes we could get, or these are the people you can afford. We were like, well, then go back, dig deeper, look further, look in other industries, make a list of all the female artists that you guys can think of, and here's all the female artists we can think of, and go and reach out to them and see who's working for them. We wanted to change the complete and total lineup, of crew and band, and specifically really push to get women in the technical roles, and we accomplished it. There are 10 of us out on the road who are women in a total of 18 people on the road. And we were
really talking about the tipping point, like where if you can get your band and crew or the people that are sort of like around you occupying space somewhere, if you can get women represented over 50%, that's the tipping point. That's when things really change in terms of.
Well, they say actually specifically, I had read this article that said if you can get 40% of the room to be women, that's when social behavior changes. Oh. And I have to say, we've been doing this. Our first tour was in 1998, and I will say that this year, being out on the road with 10 women, it really has changed social behavior on the road.
Periods are crazy. Just kidding.
But it's been,
radio's turning off right now.
Yeah, exactly. People are like, oh
God,
they did it.
Because that's what they're all afraid of. The guys are afraid we're going to talk about periods, you see?
Yeah.
We did it. It's so weird? I'm just going to say this. Why do men so afraid of periods? They love blood in every other area. Like, they're like, they love violence. They love Civil War reenactments and whatever.
That truck driver. There he is. He turned it off. Oh, my God. It's true. It's just, people are usually afraid of what they don't understand.
I know.
And the more we talk about it, the more it can normalize it. And that's what we do. That's why they were afraid of us being gay.
Yeah.
We talked about it. We normalized it.
Sure.
We're living in a very fearful time right now, obviously. Mm-hmm. Did you guys go to any marches back when we were marching?
Yeah, we did. We did. We were both here in Los Angeles for the march.
How about that?
I mean, it was phenomenal. I mean,
it's a good feeling.
We grew up. Our mom was a feminist and an activist, and so I can remember as early as like 7 or 8 years old, my mom dragging us to marches in Calgary, bring the pots and pans and a spoon, and walk up and down the streets banging on things. And
good for that.
She embarrassed us so much. Like we were like, she was very feisty with the police. She was very like anti-establishment, and she would drive us crazy. And then at some point it turned. Like I remember being like, our mom is very cool. Like I was just having this memory of my mom. My mom worked at a sexual assault center when we were in middle school, and she had this shirt, and it said "No means no," and then on the back it listed all the things that a woman could say or do that would mean that she wasn't consenting, and it was like our favorite shirt. And I just try to imagine 7th grade boys and teachers being like, we show up to like 7th grade with a "No means no" sexual assault t-shirt. Like we were a little advanced, probably without knowing we were advanced. But yeah, we love marching, and it's amazing.
The march was like, it was awesome. It was so wonderful. It was so shocking, to come, like all of our cell phones, obviously, I'm sure anyone who went experienced this, no matter where you were, didn't work. And it was incredible to get home
and see how
that,
many were actually there.
Especially after the inauguration. But also Sarah and I, at the end of last year, we launched a foundation, and specifically we're going to be fighting for, economic and economic justice and healthcare and representation in the media for self-identified women and girls from the LGBTQ community. And so we had just had this huge convening and been in a room with 60 like nonprofit, like organizers, LGBTQ organizations, like people from every
economist
field,
like professors,
like
cool.
And we had been like brainstorming and talking, and it was so uplifting and amazing. But also, a part of the day was just about learning about how marginalized people in our community still are, especially women of color and transgender women. And though I left very empowered and excited, and Sara and I are really committed to the foundation and working hard, I also left feeling really sad, like, and bummed out, because it's hard to get people to show up and care. You know what I mean? And then it was like a couple of days later, we were at the march, and I'm like, well, apparently not that hard. just put Trump in power, and then everybody comes out. Like, I really left, and I was like, okay, like, we're at a really important and pivotal point in history. And I think for Sara and I, there's always been so much social and political justice has been on our minds, and it's sort of weaved in and out of our career. And like, there's been times where we've been more outspoken and more political, then there's been times where we're like, no, the focus should be on our music. And just for whatever reason, in the last couple of years, Sara and I have become fixated on this foundation and giving back to our community. And which came from this, like, at least for me, this realization that we had become really disconnected from our community, and that we felt this incredible connection to our audience, and yet so many of the self-identified women and girls in our community were suffering. Yeah. And while I couldn't necessarily identify anymore with their suffering specifically, because I've become successful and I'm from Canada and I have healthcare, or my parents embraced us when we came out, that they were struggling, and then using us to feel better, and yet I didn't feel like I was doing anything to help them. I mean, I know I was creating music and a community for them, but I just felt like we should do more, and I just can't believe the timing of it because of everything that's happening in the world. It just doesn't feel like there's a better time that we could have started to focus on that.
That's where we are now as a people on the earth. We have to learn to live together. We have to learn to live with diversity, and that's the big contrast, the fear of the other. I've always found it very interesting, and I don't mean to harp on and I hardly ever do harp on the male-female, sort of thing in music, but you'll find, I mean, nobody told Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Young to shut up and just sing. Nobody said, hey, you shouldn't, have that music to those people that wrote those great protests of the music. It was a whole movement in music. Yeah. And now, if you're in the pop world and you dare to step over there.
Well, we have to, I think some of that is kept alive by us. We have to ignore that.
Yes.
I tweeted this the other day, but I was like, I didn't even mean it to be too aggressive. I just was like, if you want us to shut up and sing, like, we're not gonna. Yeah. But also, like, I think you followed the wrong band. Right. Like, you're following Tegan and Sara, right? Like, this isn't a new thing. We didn't just have an awakening. A lot of artists are, and that's so exciting. Yeah.
It's also
we toured with Katy Perry, and I've been absolutely blown away by her involvement in the election. Like, good for her. And I say this to people all the time who are having their political and social awakening. It's never too late, you know? And someone said this online the other day, like, great, welcome to the fight, Like, I don't want to showcase, like, who isn't here, and I don't want to focus on who isn't fighting. I want to really push the people that are here. Let's go. And I think for Sara and I, it's like, when people do say, like, I liked it better when you just were singing and telling jokes about your mom. I'm like, we're still doing that. But we're also saying, like, wow, there were some, like, serious problems happening worldwide. Yeah.
I found people would ask me, especially in the 2000s and even up to now, what do you do? What do you think about people that are gay but don't come out?
Yeah.
And I say, hey, coming out super personal.
Sure.
And you have to be in a place with yourself, with your family.
Yes.
You got to start with when I came out to my dad when I was, 18, 19, and he said, well, as long as you're happy, I'm okay.
That's great.
Just that.
Oh, yeah.
Means that I could go into the world and I could come out, and even if I lost everything, I would still have the love of my family.
Yeah.
There are artists who don't have that with their family. Yeah. Now, for them to come out, it's even going to be more so. And it's going to hurt.
Totally. We really feel... There should be no judgment for...
No,
in my opinion,
on any level, on any political level.
No, I think that's like we debate that a lot because, like, look, off the microphones and in private company, like, there have been people who I've been really frustrated by, or I've thought, like, come on, can you imagine how revolutionary this would be if you would come out? But I think what's more important, what the shift that is happening that we are focusing on is that we're 36 years old and we are now seeing kids 18 to 25 who they are so advanced, and they're coming out on the scene, and they're like making amazing music, and they're using language, and they're identifying themselves in really unique ways, and there's like, it's fun and it's creative, and that's fine. Like that can be the movement now. I don't think we need to like go like on a witch hunt, like finding the gay people in the closet. Like, but I also think that, and this is something Tegan and I've talked a lot about, is representation. I feel very proud to be queer. Like I look for stories about being gay, and I don't mean a story. I mean the unique and diverse stories that are out there. And one of the things that a lot of people say is, when they talk about people being gay, they say like, that's great. Like, why do we have to talk about it? Why does it have to be a big deal? And nobody ever says that to straight people. Nobody would ever say that to like a Jewish person or, whatever. Like I want to talk about being gay because I don't want my story to be a straight one. And I don't want to not contribute to the narrative and the history that we should be very proud to be included in. I remember seeing Milk, like the story about the biopic about Harvey Milk. And I was sobbing in the theater, and I thought to myself, what would it have been like to be a teenager knowing I was queer and having a history of queer people that I could whose histories I could look at and feel proud of. Because for me, I knew celebrities that were gay, but I didn't know anybody like, this meeting that Tegan and I had last week where I'm sitting in the room with the professors at Harvard and economists and, healers and grassroots organizers and musicians and actors. And we're all gay. And it's like, we all have a crazy, amazing, interesting history. All I care about right now is making sure that those stories get amplified. Yeah. And if you don't want your story to be a part of that, it's true. It's personal. You don't have to make it a part of that.
And, we still go through things, and Tegan is holding a guitar, and it's making me so happy because I think I've talked her into this, and I want to play too. What key is it in?
I have no idea.
Really?
There, you just asked Tegan's the question she's most afraid.
Well, I'm not afraid of it, but I admit, I just don't know.
Well, because you wrote it up. I completely understand.
Like
that.
whatever key this is.
Okay, then I will. No, that.
Yeah. See. Remember earlier on when I was like, and then we went to the folk festivals, and they were like,
and
all
everyone
right.
went, oh.
Yeah.
Well, because you learned from a different way.
We learned by
Just playing.
Yeah.
All intuition.
Yeah. It's funny, I was doing some Australian interviews yesterday, and I said, the second that I could afford a guitar player, I hired one because it just never became a thing that I wanted to learn. Like I wanted to learn enough guitar to write songs. That was it. And then,
next time someone asks you, it's in the key of D.
Okay, great.
We actually write a lot of songs in the key of D, I've learned.
D's a great key.
Okay, great. All right, I'll do my best not to mess up the lyrics. This is like
it's okay if you do.
This is a real humble or non-humble moment, but we did an event for the Clinton Foundation a few years ago, and we got to meet Bill Clinton. And when we walked up, I mean, I can only imagine the level of incredible amounts of preparation that they, get good at firsthand, whatever. Anyway, he's meeting 100 people. Sara and I walk up, and he grabs onto my hand, and he said, "Oh my God, Tegan and Sara, it's such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for doing the event. I love Where Does the Good Go. My wife and we love watching Grey's Anatomy.
My wife travels a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And I just watch a lot of Grey's Anatomy.
Come on, that's the former president.
Yeah,
right. So
and then he was he was really cool. Again, I'm not sure that I'm sure there's a lot of preparation for meeting us, but he was like, "Thanks for the work you did for the LGBTQ community." And then I was just like, "Could we just go back to the part where you were talking about you watch Grey's Anatomy?" My manager almost dropped dead right on the spot. He was like, couldn't stop talking about it. He's like, he said Grey's Anatomy. President Bill Clinton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, just when we were talking about how the music industry changed, that TV show
it changed our career.
Changed so many careers, not just yours, but that's where it people then go to somewhere else to find the new music.
Yeah.
Radio's not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
It was television, and it's still like that. You can find some great music. So
I had the pleasure of being able to go back and forth a little bit with Shonda once, and I said to her, "Thank you for giving us a career," because at that point, we were really kind of flailing around, just touring, we had
playing bars
and stuff, and and someone sent us the pilot of Grey's Anatomy and said they're looking for someone to write the song, and we were like, well, we're on the road and we're too scared to even attempt something like that, but we were like, we'd be okay with using the music. My best friend's a doctor, an OBGYN, and I sent a pilot to her and I said, is this cool? She said, it's pretty cool, yeah. And they ended up, I think over time I've probably used like 12 songs or something, so I just was like, thank you so much.
That's so cool. Yeah. That's super cool. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here
it is.
Tegan, I have talked Tegan and Sarah into do it. Sarah doesn't feel well, and she's going to sing it.
Throat. I'll try not to ruin it.
Tegan doesn't know what key she's singing it in.
I don't know the words.
But you know what? For me, and I feel very powerful right now.
You're very powerful.
I appreciate that. Oh, my favorite song, and Bill Clinton's favorite song.
Here it is.
From Grey's Anatomy.
They should put that on the CD. We could probably re-release the record and get another 30,000 copies sold. Featuring President Bill Clinton's favorite song. And then second sticker, also Melissa Etheridge's favorite song.
Where does the good go? Come on, just give me a little bit.
Where do you go with your broken heart and toe? What do you do with the left over you? And how do you know when it's time to let go? Where does the good go? Where does the good go? Look me in the eye and tell me you don't find me attractive. Look me in the heart and tell me that you won't go. Look me in the eye and promise no love was I got love. Look me in the heart and I'm broken, it won't happen. It's love that leaves, that breaks the seed of love. I'm always thinking you would be real happy and healthy, strong and calm. Where's the good go? Where's the good go? Where do you go when you're in love and the world knows? How do you live so happily while I am sad and broken down? And what do you say? It's up for grabs now that you're on your way down. Where does the good go? Where does the good go? Look me in the eye and tell me you don't find me attractive. Look me in the heart and tell me that you won't go. Look me in the eye and promise no love's like I love. Look me in the heart and I'm broken, it won't happen. It's love that leaves, that breaks the seed of love. I'm always thinking you would be real happy and healthy, strong and calm. Where's the good go? Where's the good go?
Yes! Oh, come on! Oh my God. Angels. Just angels you two are.
Oh my God.
Oh, thank you. Are you kidding? Thank you so much.
I'm so glad Tegan remembers how to play everything, because I haven't played guitar in so many years. I sort of moved away from it like 2009, and Tegan can just she's like a real Christmas Carol person. Like we'll be like, let's play this one, and she can remember. And I'm like, how do you remember all that?
Awesome. And you know what? Just the more you do it, just pick it up. The more you do it, the more it comes, the easier.
I want like it to be like a Google car. I just want my brain. I want someone to come in and just implant a chip soon, and it's just does all the work for me.
You know why I went back to guitar? Like, I know you have really
I went back to piano. I did a bunch of theory again. I learned.
There you go.
I learned everything.
I think that's what I was going to say
great.
was that it's mostly just about when I went back, I was like, oh yeah, this is really fun, and I'm and it was nice to go back to it, but it was also really great to refresh my way of writing, because I am limited on guitar. It forces me to write in a different way, right?
Yeah.
And whereas with piano I knew more. So
that's funny. I'm the other way around.
You'll sit down.
We have a piano
clunk,
here.
Clunk.
Oh God!
Put your money where your mouth is, Sarah.
It's funny because it's to me the piano was always a source of anxiety, because it was it was what we did as kids, and every Tuesday and Thursday we had to go to piano.
But aren't you glad, sort of?
Oh my God! I'm so glad.
So
also,
moms, they're eventually they can be glad. Some will not like it, but some will grow up and be glad they played.
And we did, and the truth is we didn't like it.
No,
but my parents were like, they knew we were up to no good, so they built a lot of structure into our life.
I was gonna say, on the days where I had extracurricular activities, we had piano lessons. Tegan and I also volunteered at a distress line. We did answer calls, and we had part-time jobs. So I think we were misbehaving and definitely pushing boundaries, but we also had so much structure that we had to kind of manage ourselves and discipline ourselves in a certain way.
Be bad for 2 hours, but then make sure you get.
I'd be And I was more afraid of my piano teacher, disappointing my piano teacher, than anybody. Like, all my teachers at school were like, we had huge classes, 35, 40 kids in a class. Nobody was paying any attention to me. You know, my mom was going back to school. She was getting her master's when we were in high school. My stepdad was busy working. My piano teacher was like, I would like show up and she was like, she would see me, you know?
You did not practice.
No. And I would that was where we really learned to BS. Like, because I would get in there and I would know I didn't know anything. I hadn't done anything since the last time I saw her. And so I was like, I was doing the sort of like the dance, you know? I was doing the like chatting, making her laugh, and like
you were learning how to talk to people on stage.
I was learning how to talk to people on stage. I was learning to cover my inadequacies, like with humor and with, you know, telling stories. But coming back to the piano, I've written pretty much the last 3 albums. All of them, everything I've written has been on piano, and I find it to be like a really beautiful and soulful way to write. Whereas the guitar stresses me out. It always feels out of tune, and I'm always like hitting the wrong thing. Piano is a place where I can like actually kind of disappear a bit into writing. Okay, I've had a great time with you ladies, but that does it for this episode of Melissa's Basement. Thank you once again to my guests, Tegan and Sara, and thank you for tuning in. You can catch my show every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, with repeat airings throughout the week. Plus, you can listen to the show on demand on the SiriusXM website and on the SiriusXM app. I'll be back soon with more great conversation and music here on Volume 106.